I think one of the biggest issues that we face in our modern society is that we spend entirely way too much time in our minds that we should, right? We spend so much time in our minds, so much so that we've forgotten what it means to be heart centered. I think if you've ever been in your mind long enough, you sort of begin to realize how many problems the mind begins to create from very little or even nothing at all, right? Sometimes a person might say something to me, something simple, right? And my mind begins to create a million different scenarios or interpretations of this one sentence when the person might not even, I guess, mean it on a deeper level than they said it, right? Or let's say something happened, my mind begins to create 1,000 different negative circumstances or situations that could follow this one event. So if you've been in your mind long enough, most of the problems that we truly face, most of the problems that we experience, quote unquote problems, are truly just fabrications of the mind, right? And something that I realized the other day, or an epiphany that I think I came to, was that a lot of the mental health concerns that we have today, a big reason for this drastic shift in mental health concern globally is because we spend way too much time in our minds, right? And I think if we make the shift from being more mind-centered to being more heart-centered, then not only will we begin to heal on an individual basis, but we will begin to heal on a collective basis as well, right? There's this beautiful quote by Alan Watts that I got reminded of the other day. I was sitting down and the quote just came to me. And the quote says, "A person who thinks all the time has nothing else to think but thoughts." And for a long while, I felt like that quote kind of puzzled me, right? I spent a lot of time trying to understand it logically, trying to, I guess, intellectualize it, trying to explain it, trying to understand it through logic, right? I spent a great deal of time trying to break it down, But then I realized this was where I was going wrong. I was trying to understand this quote through logic, and in doing so, the more I tried to understand it through logic, the more confused I became, right? But then there was this aspect of me, this deeper aspect of me, that truly understood, or should I say, felt this quote intuitively without me even being able to sort of articulate it or explain it logically, right? And I truly began to realize that was the purpose of this quote. The purpose of this entire quote by Alan Watts was to kind of show us that there are some things in life that really cannot be explained using the mind. There are some things in life in which the mind simply cannot grasp or understand. As paradoxical or as crazy that sounds, but there are certain things that truly just have to be felt with the heart. There are certain things that truly just have to be experienced. There are certain things that truly just have to be felt. There are certain things that truly just have to be lived, right? And the mind simply cannot grasp everything. And the more we try to sort of grasp everything with the mind, the more time we spend in the mind, the more problems that we create in our world. And I think for this reason, one of the biggest reasons why a lot of us feel lost in this world is because we're trying to sort of find our way by using our minds, right? What I mean by that is, a lot of us in this world, we're sort of confused about what our life purpose is, what we're meant to do, why we're here, right? We're sort of trying to rationalize or overthink our way into finding meaning when it comes on to life. And meaning isn't something that you find with the mind. Meaning is something that you follow with the heart. Meaning is something that you experience with the heart, by living close to your heart, by being in your heart more. And the more we try to find meaning through our constant thinking, our constant over analyzing, the further away we sort of go from truly living life, right? You can't think your way into living. You can only live, right? Living isn't something that you rationalize. Living isn't something that you constantly think about. Living is something that you embody, right? So there are truly a lot of things that we truly can't explain with the mind. There are a lot of ways in which the mind causes a whole lot of our suffering, in which the mind sort of causes a lot of us to feel lost in this world. And what we truly need is to become more heart-centered, shifting from logic and thinking and thought to being more intuitive, right? Embodying life, experiencing life instead of constantly thinking about it, right? And I think that's something that I struggled with for a very long while, right? I think with everything there is a downside to it. And I think for me specifically, I was sort of always a thinker. I think that has been one of my strongest points in life. But there got to a point in which I had to realize that thinking is okay and thinking has its place. But there's so much things or so many different ways in which thinking falls short. And I sort of had to trust my heart more. I had to trust my intuition more. I had to sometimes step away from my mind and just listen to what is in my heart. And I think for me personally, once I made that shift, not only did I find more meaning in my life, but I began to experience a whole lot more peace, a whole lot more joy. I began to experience a whole lot more love in my life. Simply because I started to be more and live more in my heart, right? And I think when it comes on to, truly being in our heart more, I think it's something that is actually very simple, right? I think we've just been conditioned to spend way too much time in our minds than we should. And there are so many forces in this world who want to trap us in our minds because they know that the longer we spend in our minds, the more dysfunction will result, right? If you even look at the state of the world is the way it is because people are in an internal state of anarchy in their minds, right? Internal state of confusion mentally, right? And whatever it is that we hold within us, whatever it is that we hold right here, we're constantly going to project it into the world, right? So healing the world collectively truly starts from not being in our minds so much and being in our hearts more, right? Spending more time in our hearts. Like I was saying, there are a few things that I personally did in my own personal life to make the transition from being more mind-centered to being more heart-centered, right? And I'm going to share 3 of those ways with you guys. Hopefully this benefits someone watching this who wants to make that shift as well. And the first thing that I did to shift from being more mind-centered to being more heart-centered was that I began to find things in my life that truly made me excited. I began to implement and add things into my daily life which truly tap into my highest forms of excitement, right? And what I mean by that is finding and adding things into my life that made me feel the most alive. And this doesn't have to be something complex. it can be the simple things, right? What are the hobbies, the things that you truly like doing, the things that make you feel alive? For me, it is making these videos, going to the gym, reading books, watching Naruto, Boruto, Attack on Titan, the simple things that make me feel excited and make me feel the most alive, right? Or it could be something simple as going for a walk in nature, taking more walks outside, going to the beach, go and watch the sunset, right? Adding things into your life will truly make you excited, right? That's one of the major ways in which you can truly make the shift from being more mind-centered to being more heart-centered. Because one of the things that you'll notice is that whenever you're doing something that you truly like to do and you truly love to do, you'll begin to realize that you're not thinking as much, right? Your thoughts, they truly do slow down. And that's because you're truly just experiencing the moment. You're being present in the moment, right? So your mind isn't in the state of constant overthinking. You're in a state of being. You're in a state of joy. You're in a state of peace. You're in a state of gratitude. You're in a state of love whenever you're doing something that you genuinely enjoy doing, something that you're excited about, right? So I think if we sort of make the shift and truly begin to add more things into our lives in which we truly enjoy doing, then we will begin to become more balanced, right? A lot of us, don't even know what we truly enjoy doing because we never truly take the time to venture, right? We spend so much time in our constant thinking, and we never truly allow ourselves to live. But you have to allow yourself to live more to truly discover what you like to do, right? Don't be afraid to venture. Don't be afraid to see something, and if it piques your curiosity, you actually try it. Don't be afraid of that, right? But you have to add things into your life in which you genuinely love. That is what this whole thing that we call life is about, right? Living close to our excitement, living close to our passion, living close to our hearts. That is what this thing that we call life is all about, right? Now, the second way to become more heart-centered is to add more silence into your life, right? Add more silence into your life. Now, we live in a society that is sort of addicted to constant noise, constant chatter, constant dopamine, right? Actually, silence is something that is very uncomfortable for a lot of us. Because the moment you're silent, you sort of begin to even hear your own thoughts. You begin to hear yourself speak. Your mind begins to chatter, right? So silence is something that we're so afraid of. But here's the thing about adding more silence into your life, right? When you add more silence into your life, the mind over time begins to become more silent, right? Initially, when you add more silence, let's say you begin to sit in meditation for 10-15 minutes a day, one of the things that you truly begin to notice is that your mind just chatters, right? It's constantly thinking, it's constantly over-analyzing, right? But it is because the mind is accustomed to that constant activity, right? But as you begin to add more silence into your life, it's gonna get to a place in which you begin to sort of realize how calm your mind becomes. Your mind begins to chatter less and be silent a lot more, right? And when the mind begins to become a lot more silent, you begin to truly get down into the depths of your heart. That's when your heart begins to speak. That's when your soul begins to speak. That's when the version of you, the higher version of you, begins to speak. when you begin to silence the mind, right? And that's something that I personally experienced in my own life. The more I brought silence into my life, the more I began to, in a sense, get some, I guess, deeper flashes of guidance and intuition, right? Actually, this even the reason why I decided to make this YouTube channel, right? The whole reason why I decided to make this YouTube channel was because I began to hear my heart speak more, and my heart was telling me to get on this camera and simply just speak about my life and my experiences, the lessons that I've learned, so on and so forth, right? So adding more silence into your life is drastically going to change your life. You're going to begin to realize just how much more peaceful you are, how much more joy you experience, right? How much more love you begin to experience, because your heart, or the voice of your heart, if you want to say that, you begin to sort of hear it more when the mind becomes much more silent, right? Simply because you begin to add more silence into your life. So silence is very powerful. Silence is a beautiful thing, right? Don't be afraid of silence. There's so much peace that you can experience, so much joy that you can experience in silence, right? I wouldn't trade silence for anything in this world. Now, the last and the final thing that I did to become more heart-centered in my own life was that I began to spend a lot less time on social media. Right? This is a huge one. I haven't been on most social media platforms for like a few months now, right? I decided to delete TikTok and Instagram. I use YouTube and I think I have Threads. Yeah. So I began to spend a lot less time on social media. And what I began to realize was that I began to experience a whole lot more peace. I don't have to go online and constantly compare my life to other people, constantly compare myself to other people, constantly analyze, and there's so many different ways in which social media pulls us into this realm of constantly being in our minds, right? The constant dopamine hits, the constant seeing other people's lives, there. And this is not to say it's bad. This is not to say social media is a bad thing, right? This is social media. YouTube is social media. But I think there has to be a balance in our lives. Nothing, unfortunately, a lot of us we're not balanced when it pertains to our use of social media, right? So you might have to delete it completely in order for you to sort of, I guess, when you're addicted. I can't remember the word that they use. When you're addicted to something, you kind of have to sort of, is it detach? Yeah, I'm gonna use that word, detach. You might need to delete social media to sort of detach from it, right? To sort of clean yourself, right? Cleanse yourself, right? Go on a social media rehab, right? You might need to delete it completely. But I began to realize that when I began to spend a lot less time on social media, I began to spend more time in my heart, because I'm not constantly thinking, overanalyzing, judging. I get to spend more time right here within myself. I get to be present within myself when I'm not comparing myself to other people's lives, and I'm constantly seeing this negativity, right? I begin to spend a lot more time within my being, within myself, right? So deleting social media, or even just spending less time monitoring how much time you spend on it, can truly help you to make that shift, right? You don't want that constant dysfunction, that constant negativity in your life, right? You want peace in your life. And if you want to experience that, I would definitely recommend you spend a lot less time on social media. Right? There's way too much negativity on there these days. Way too much negativity. Right? So yeah, these are the three things. Number one, just to recap, adding things into your life that make you feel the most alive. Number two, adding more silence into your life. And number three, spend a lot less time online. Right? Those are the three ways in which I shifted from being more mind-centered to being more heart-centered. And ultimately, that's what you need in your life. You need that balance, right? Because if you spend way too much time up here than you should, you're constantly going to be in a state of internal dysfunction. You need balance. You need time. You need silence to hear your heart speak. You need to spend more time right here so that what is right here can truly guide you, right? And this is why, for example, whenever you're and this is something that I experienced, whenever you're I guess you do something, you're a creative person, right? Let's say you write music or you even make videos like these. Sometimes you begin to realize that it's when you're not thinking or when you're not over analyzing that even sometimes the best ideas come to you, right? And that's because the mind is silence. The chatter of the mind is silence. And that's when your heart, when I say heart in this context, that's when your higher self, your inner being, begins to speak to you, right? Simply from silence in the mind. That's where wisdom comes from. Wisdom isn't necessarily something that comes from here. Ultimately, it comes from here. But you have to silence what is here so that you can listen to what is here. And so that the love, the peace, the joy, the freedom, everything good right here can be manifested and come into your life and expressed into your life more, right? So yeah, that's it for the video. Yeah, I figured this video would be very important to make because just based on my own personal experience and my own observation, a lot of our problems in this world truly do come from spending way more time in our minds than we should. We're really shifting to being more heart-centered, really shifting to at least balancing it and spending more time here can truly solve a lot of our problems individually and collectively. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you for being here with me. And I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace and blessings.